What's good, everybody? I'm back with another video today, and today I'm gonna be breaking down another Drake type beat. This one's uh more style of probably Iceman. Um, this one also has a beat switch in it. It starts off as kind of like an R&B beat, or it does start off as an R&B beat, and then it switches into more of like a hard trap type of, like dark kind of beat. So yeah, enough said. Let's get straight into it. All right, and the first thing that I kind of want to go over before we get into the, breaking down every little part of the beat is like right here I got the full beat. Here's the trap section and here's the R&B section. Um, but when you're making these two different sections of the beat, like it can get kind of easy to get like lost in all the audio clips and different plugins and all this stuff that you're using. So I think it's easy. Like this helped me a lot when I was making this. Is up here you can like do different arrangements. This is the full beat arrangement, but right here if I go to the trap section, this is just the trap section of the beat, and I could just work on the trap section right here, and it kind of helps keep things separated and kind of easier to understand. I'm not like the smartest guy, I guess, but it just kind of helps keep everything organized a little bit so you know where everything's at. And I just, it's not something that you have to do when you're making beat switches in your beat, but I just think that it helped me personally because when I was making this one, I already kind of knew I wanted to do a beat switch. So yeah, just doing the different arrangements helps a lot. But yeah, with that being said, let's hop into the first part. For this next part, I kind of just want to get the chords out of the way. This is probably the most complex part of the whole entire beat, honestly. Even with the trap section, this is probably the most complex part of the whole entire beat. And it's these chords. It's really they're pretty simple, but it just looks like there's a lot going on. This section over here, this little 4-bar section over here, the only difference with this one compared to this little 4-bar section is I just took these notes right here and copied them down an octave, and that's how you get this section over here, but they're up an octave over here. And then this 8-bar section, this full 8-bar section is copied over to this side too, so it's exactly the same right here as it is on this side, except this side is just different because it has the top line melody on it, but the chords are exactly the same as on this side. And with these bass notes right here, all I literally did was I literally just took the bottom notes of these chords, copied them down an octave, and then I copied them down again another octave. Looks like these two right here are extended, but I guess I didn't necessarily have to do that or anything. But yeah, like I said, the only big difference for this last little part is just this little top line melody. And all I can really say for this part is just kind of experiment, just see what kind of sounds good and where it sounds good at. And if you don't know music theory, one thing that could help out a little bit is if you come up here, you can click minor or major, depending on what scale you're trying to be in. But currently I'm in minor C. And then when you do that, it pretty much it highlights all of the notes that are in that scale pretty much. And when you turn this on too, when you see it's green up here, when it's off, you can place notes anywhere. But to help you out even more, just to make sure that you never place anything out of scale, if you choose your scale and then you turn it on to where it's green up here, it won't even allow you to place something that's out of scale. Like everything, no matter where I can just throw it around here and it's in scale. You know what I mean? Like it will never let you not put something in scale when it's green up here. So it's a little tip there. And I took this exact pattern here and I copied it again right here, with just a different sound. Let's go ahead and listen to just these two pads together real quick. All right, and I'll play this little top line section that I was talking about earlier. I'll play that later. But for right now, we'll just leave it at that with the chords. And like I said, that honestly right there is probably the most complex part of this whole entire beat because everything else is pretty simple. And even that isn't anything like too crazy. But I know it can look like a lot sometimes to especially someone that's just beginning. But trust me, once you get more practice and once you do this more, like you'll kind of see that it's not really anything too crazy. But yeah, with that being said, let's hop straight into the next section. Okay, and the next part that I kind of wanted to go over is just the vocals. Once again, nothing too crazy going on with these vocals. I literally just have this one little vocal loop. I think I got it from. I think I got this vocal loop from like a Kavi kit. This is the original. So yeah, pretty good vocal, I guess. And that's what I put right here. I didn't do anything too crazy to it. I did, if you want to look at the little vocal chain that I used to, you know, make it sound more like Drake vibe, because Drake he don't just throw his vocals on there and call it good. He does a lot of processing and stuff to it. But a big thing that he does to get that kind of Drake vibe though is cut out a lot of the highs in vocals because it leaves more room for him, but it also that's just kind of the Drake sound. I feel like when you EQ out a lot of the high end, that's just kind of, or honestly, I think with the way that Drake does it is he completely takes all of the high end out. He doesn't just like EQ it; he completely takes all the high end out. So I didn't necessarily take all the high end out, but it still works for this. And for this part right here, it's pretty much literally the same exact vocals, except I just reversed it. So here's that. And then I think the reason why there's a little gap here is, yeah, I think I just didn't like the section that was being played right here for whatever, or maybe, I don't know. I honestly don't even remember exactly what I did for this but there's a little gap there. I might have just not liked that section that was played right there, so I cut it out. I'm guessing that's what it was. I also got this little, just like, I don't even know, just like a little vocal like riff, I guess you could say, or something. Just kind of adds to it. I mean, it doesn't really do much. It's just kind of like and that's the only spot where I play it at too. I don't know. I just kind of adds to it a little bit, I guess. Just adds a little extra, little ear candy, I guess you could say. And really, that's all for the whole entire melody of the R&B beat. Like, that's the whole entire melody of the R&B beat, pretty much. I'm gonna get into the R&B drums a little bit. They're just as simple, pretty much. But yeah, there's really, and not just with the R&B stuff, even with the trap stuff. Whenever I'm making anything Drake, I just honestly try to keep it as simple as I can. I don't want to go too crazy with it because you got to leave room for the artist, especially someone like Drake. He talks a lot in his beats. He gets a lot off his chest. He has a lot to say. So you got to leave room for the artist. Main thing, really. I mean, that's something that a lot of starting producers kind of struggle with a little bit, is maybe adding too much. It just kind of makes everything muddy if you don't know how to mix correctly. It doesn't always sound the best, but it also just depends on the vibe you're going for. I mean, sometimes adding a million sounds in there is perfect for certain genres or whatever. It just really depends on what you're going for. And for this one, I just like to keep it simple. So, but yeah, that's the whole entire R&B melody. So let's get into the drums next. All right, and for the drums, I think, or I guess this technically isn't really drums. This is it says up here 808. It's more of a bass. It's not really an 808. Here, I'll just play it for you guys real quick first before I talk about it. And it's pretty much that same thing, just copied over the whole time. So yeah, it's really simple bass, and makes it even simpler once I explain it, because it's literally just okay. Yeah, I just got a little notification from FL Studio saying that it needed to crash in the middle of this, but then it never did. So yeah. But anyways, like I was saying, for the for the bass, I literally just took these exact notes and used those exact notes as the bass, and I just extended them all the way, so there wasn't any gaps in between, And that's all I did for the bass. Super simple, nothing crazy at all. And then after that, I got kind of like this little perk loop. Okay, yeah, very very Drake vibes, if you ask me. Uh, very Drake vibes. This little, you can see I cut out this little section up here. Oh, this is the consolidated version actually. So I don't even have the original perk loop in here anymore. But with the original perk loop, the reason why I cut out that first little section here is because there's like kind of like a kick in it. I didn't want that in there. I wanted my own kick in there. So I just cut that out for it to just be these little like, rim shots playing. And that's the only reason why these like little tiny sections are cut out here. I just didn't want the kick in there. I did not think the kick sounded good, and I was gonna use my own kick anyway. So I was like, I'm just gonna cut that part out. So there's that perk loop, and that's literally all I used in the intro was just this perk loop alone. And then once the beat drops a little bit, you can see the kick and a snare comes in. Every single time I had this snare hitting, I cut out the rim shot, but I had all the extra like counter rim shots playing in there though. And that's why this perk loop is all chopped up here, just because I didn't really want it layered onto the snare. I tried it out at first, but I didn't think that it sounded super good to me. But yeah, let's just listen to all the drums together. So yeah, I mean, super simple, super vibey. I guess Drake vibes. Uh, but yeah, like I've been saying, literally nothing too special. Right here, this is just the intro, and then here's where the beat drops. I have the vocals playing, and I have the reversed vocals layered on top of that, and I have this little vocal riff playing too. So kind of a lot going on with the vocals in this section. And then once it gets to this section, this is the part where I have the little top line playing. So yeah, there's that top line part. And then once you get to this part, I have just the reverse vocals there. And then here is where the beat starts to kind of, you know, like the vibe starts to kind of change a little bit, I guess you could say, and you can kind of sense the beat switch coming, I guess. This is kind of like a little heartbeat, like. So yeah, I just thought that was kind of cool to add that little part in there, because I felt like it helped transition into the next part. So just finding little things like that kind of help transition into a little beat switch or something. It doesn't, obviously it does not have to be exactly like this, but I just thought that sounded cool for this part. But yeah, that's really all for the R&B section. So let's get into the trap section. Nice. All right, and here we are for this trap section. These are literally the chords that I use for the whole entire beat. I know, a lot going on here. A lot different than the R&B section. This is literally probably as simple as you can get. But like what I did here though is I used these two notes that are right next to each other. There's they are literally right next to each other. There's no gap in between them or anything. And what makes these two notes that are next to each other like this so special is it creates a lot of tension and like darkness, and I just feel like especially recently with this Iceman beats and stuff, like Drake, he's been dissing a lot. His beats are just very dark and tense, and like they just have that tense feeling. I feel like so. This is a perfect way to get that tense feeling, and sometimes this might be all you need. And obviously, this isn't the whole entire beat. I added more, but sometimes for the chords, this might be all you need. Keeping it simple sometimes isn't. It's not bad. You don't have to at all go super crazy with the chords, and I could have added a lot more in here, but I just kept it like this. I thought it sounded good, so if it sounds good, don't even worry about it. Don't worry what it looks like, what your MIDI looks like. It doesn't have to look anything like what the R&B MIDI earlier looked like. This works perfectly fine. Just find what you think sounds good, and whatever you think sounds good, that's what you use. But anyways, let's give this a listen through real quick. And it is literally just that, repeating. And then I have this one too. But another thing that helps when you're doing super simple chords like these is you kind of hear how that sound kind of had like a little bit of movement to it. It wasn't just the same sound all the way throughout. Like it kind of had a little bit of movement to it. And that's one thing that I will say is kind of really useful if you're using super simple patterns like this, is to kind of use sounds that have a little bit of movement and, something else going on. Because like I said, you want to keep things simple, but at the same time, you still don't want it to just sound the exact same throughout the whole entire thing. So I think layering that sound in there where it had a little bit of movement and stuff, I think that was very important. And the beat would not have been the same at all without that one sound being layered on there. So I think that sound helped out a lot. Just kind of add like a teeny bit of variation, I guess, or just a little bit extra going on in your ear, I guess you could say. But yeah, and like I said, that is literally all that I have for the chords of this entire trap section. Nothing crazy at all. For the bass, I guess we can get into the bass next. Here, let's listen through first. So yeah, as you can hear, it is super dark and tense and just eerie almost. But this intro part is the only part of the whole entire beat where I use that bass. It was just kind of, I didn't use it anywhere else. I just kind of felt like it helped add some eeriness to the beat, I guess. But I didn't want to go too crazy on it. I thought it was just a little bit too much if I used it more throughout the beat, But I think that it works perfectly just for this little intro section. I think that it sounds good like that. So yeah, and then let's talk about these phrases too. I got these phrases here. This one's actually turned down an octave, a whole entire octave, and this is what it sounds like. So yeah, once again, pretty eerie and dark sounding. That's kind of the whole vibe I was going for with this one. Anything that sounded kind of eerie or dark sounding to me, I just I threw it in there and checked if it sounded good. And then this section over here, this part, this is the normal phrase, because the first one was down an octave, like I said, and this one's back up an octave to where it originally was. So yeah, and then I had the down an octave play again right here, just to kind of keep variation, like I said. And something as simple as that sometimes is all you need to do to add a little bit of variation in your beat. Is just have one part up an octave, one part down an octave. And, sometimes that works perfectly, just like that. I added this little stomp at the start, just to kind of make when it transitioned into this, I wanted it to kind of like hit hard, once it got into this part. So I added the stomp in there just to kind of add to it. And then I also added this little open hat. I think it also adds some eeriness to the beat. It's just kind of a different open hat or crash, I guess, or whatever. I don't even know what it is. It's just kind of different. I think it's cool. It sounds like, I feel like it adds darkness to the beat, just the way it sounds. You know what I mean? So yeah, and that's literally all it is for the melody. Not a ton of sounds at all, but like I've said, I like to keep my Drake stuff like pretty simple. As long as it sounds full, then that's all that matters. You know what I mean? As long as I think that the beat sounds full and finished, that's all that matters. Like, don't ever even worry about how many sounds you have in there. If it sounds good and finished to you, then that's all you're gonna need. You know what I mean? And I thought at this point it sounded good and finished and full, so I left it there with the melody. One thing that I did do, yeah, the mixer track is crazy just because I had two different beats going on. So I have a bunch of stuff in my mixer track. Most of this stuff I didn't even put anything on. I just kind of probably threw it in here just because, and I route everything through like a drum bus or a melody bus. So even if I don't put anything specifically on some, I'll still throw it on the mixer track just to route it through like a drum bus or something. So that's why I have literally everything on my mixer track. You don't have to do that. It's just really preference, how it's just your workflow, whatever you do. And on my master, literally all I have is a soft clipper. That's it. And I use fresh air like all the time on my drum bus, melody bus. It doesn't even matter. I use fresh air all the time. But yeah, what I was originally gonna say is with these chords up here, I made I panned one of them to the left a little bit and one of them to the right a little bit. And I feel like just doing something like that also kind of helps make it feel more full. So I do that a lot just to kind of spread it out a little bit, I guess, it kind of, and so they're not all fighting for the same, like, spot. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how to really explain it, but yeah. Once again, it's also just kind of what sounds good to you. So experiment with that and see what you like. Let's go ahead and just listen to just the drums, and then I'll break them down and kind of talk about it. But yeah, let's give it a listen. So yeah, I honestly think those drums sound super good. I like these drums a lot. I'm gonna first break down I'm gonna talk about the 808s first. So let's go to the 808s. Okay, so here's the 808. Literally just like everything else that I've been saying, like nothing crazy going on here. And this is not the original 808 pattern that I had either. I kind of experiment a lot with my 808s and just kind of see what sounds good. I might do something kind of crazy and then be like, maybe that's a little bit too much, and then I'll make it a little simpler, or vice versa. But like I said, a lot of it's just experimenting and seeing what you think sounds good. I kept this one honestly pretty simple. Not a lot going on. And the pattern that I have right here is literally the same pattern. Yeah. It's literally the same pattern copied over on every single one of these. So nothing crazy at all. I didn't even do any kind of like rolls or anything on this. And, I thought it worked just fine. And then the hi-hats. There's quite a bit going on with these hi-hats here. But what I did is I usually just always start out with a two-step hi-hat pattern. I just come up here to the playlist and I fill each two steps, and that's usually how I always start out with my hi-hats. But then I'll start experimenting a little bit. Like the one that was right here, how I got that is I pretty much just brought it down, extended it, and I went Alt U, and then boom, that's how I got that. So Alt U kind of chops your MIDI up a little bit. So I use that a lot when making hi-hats. added like a little small roll here, a little triplet roll or whatever you call that, I guess. Right here, same exact thing that I showed you before. I brought it down, or I guess I didn't bring that one down, but I extended it, went Alt U, and then for this one, I think I made it like that. So you can change the multiplier too to make it, more rolls or less rolls. And this one I had a little bit more rolls going on there. Once again, I just kind of experimented. So I like just tried different sections with rolls, see where I kind of just was looking to see where like I thought the rolls sounded good at, and I'd bring the hi-hats down a few cents, for certain spots just to give it a little bit of a different sound, add some variation to it. For the most part, that's really all I did for the hi-hats. For this first main snare, I literally just have it hitting on all the spots where you'd have a normal snare hitting at. Nothing special going on there. Nothing crazy, but with the accent snare, this is where I have, I kind of go crazy with the accent snare a little bit. I used a lot of accent snares. And one thing that I make sure that I do with accent snares though is I always make sure that the accent snare is hitting at a lower dB than the normal snare. Like if I have my normal snare at like 3 dB or something like that, then I'll put my accent snare at like 6 dB or 9 dB, whatever sounds good for your beat. I don't have like a special place where I always have it at the same time, it just kind of depends on the beat. But I do always have the accent snare somewhat lower than the main snare. And then here's the open hats. Nothing crazy going on with the open hats either. Have one hit every once in a while. Boom, boom. And it's literally just the same pattern over here too. Super simple open hat pattern. Nothing crazy going on. And then I kind of forgot about this little section, but I have a little camera flick right there. That transitions into this next part with the phrase playing. Down here, I'm sure you guys, because this is probably a part that you guys are going to have a lot of questions on, is the R&B section is 125 BPM, and then the trap section is 140 BPM. Let's go to the full beat arrangement now. So here's the full beat. This is the R&B section. And then pretty much how I change the BPM is I literally just see the BPM up here. I right click it. I click create an automation clip or whatever, yeah. And then you see this, type in value, and I'll just type in whatever BPM I want it to be right there, 140. Put it where I want it to be 140 at. Make sure it stays 140 the whole way through though, make sure it doesn't go back down. So put 140 on the end and at the start, so it stays 140 throughout, and then just put that right where you want the BPM to change, and then it'll be 125 all the way up until you get to this point, and then it'll switch to 140, as you can see up there, 125, and then 140. So that's how you do that. But yeah, and also forgive me, I don't do like a ton of YouTube videos. I just kind of, I think this is really fun, and I want to, make something out of it. So I'm just doing this, see where it takes me, see where it goes. But I know I'm not like a super good talker or anything like that. But trust me, I'll get better. I get better at anything. The more I practice and stuff. So yeah, just stick with me. My videos are gonna continue to get better. So, and I'm also gonna continue to put out more as time goes on too. So yeah. But anyways, that's everything. Let's give the transition a little listen through though. See how it sounds. Yeah, I think this is super hard, super tough, especially when it drops and has the drums and the 808 come in here. Like I get super Drake vibes from this part right here when it drops. Like Drake could diss the fuck out of somebody with with this little part here. Yeah, that's really all for the entire beat here. I guess let's give the full thing a little listen through. I guess why not? All right, and that'll do it for today's video. I appreciate you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed the beat. I really do. I hope that you found something like that you didn't know before that'll make you better in the future. Leave any recommendations for future videos in the comments, or any questions, I guess, or inquiries of any sorts. Leave them in the comments, and I'll get back to you. I don't. My comments aren't going super crazy right now, so I'll see all of them pretty much. So yeah, but until next time.